The DC Multiverse is vast, and honestly, rather confusing. Luckily, today, we're only talking about its weirder worlds. Gotham by Gaslight, like most Elseworld stories, is just super freaking cool. It's such an obviously brilliant concept. Take Batman, the greatest detective, plop him in the Victorian era, and have him take on one of the most compelling unsolved serial killer cases in history, Jack the Ripper. But then they go and make it even cooler by having Jack move to this really awesome Victorian Gotham City and give Batman and the Ripper a personal connection. The story even sees Bruce accused of being the killer himself, which adds yet another layer on top of everything else. Also, we have to talk about how incredibly cool the art style in this comic is, which came from Mike Mignola, who created Hellboy, and it just works perfectly in this Victorian setting. It's actually just a big old treat to read. Gotham by Gaslight was one of DC's most successful Elseworlds stories, and it got expanded on as Earth 19 with even more Victorian-era steampunk-style DC heroes, including the Atom, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman, not to mention versions of a bunch of Batman's rogues gallery. Next up, Earth 47 is home to a version of the Justice League known as the Love Syndicate, whose members include Sunshine Superman, Shooting Star, who is actually Bruce Wayne, who got inspired by a shooting star instead of a bat, Speed Freak, who is a speedster, obviously, Brother Power, who is a mannequin brought to life by a lightning bolt, Prez Record, who's the immortal president of the United States, and the Magic Lantern, who is just a Green Lantern that literally looks like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. It's fantastic. As you may have noticed, it's all love in this universe, with everything being seemingly inspired by the 70s, and everyone just being pretty darn groovy. This universe first appeared in Animal Man number 23 and unfortunately got removed by the Crisis on Infinite Earths, but luckily, Grant Morrison liked it so much that he brought it back and included it in his Multiversity guidebook, meaning it can totally come back at some point. Next up, the Linearverse is an alternate reality where the people age so slowly that it's almost safe to say that they don't age at all. Batman began his career in 1939, with his youth lasting for decades instead of the normal aging of a human. In a way, this kind of represents how comic book characters seemingly never age and grow old, except in certain stories. Now, by the late 20th century, the world had most of its superheroes, and after this point, things get a little whack and just kinda go completely off the rails. Earth became a dystopia ruled by the wealthy, which is a little bit too real, and a great disaster was foreseen that actually came to pass. Then, the world became very similar to the one in the Earth AD storyline. Anthropomorphized animals had become the rulers of the planet, with humans devolving, save for Kamandi and a few others. Then, in the 25th century, humanity seemingly built a high-tech society which saw the rise of Michael Carter, Booster Gold. In the 31st century, Earth became the base of the Legion of Superheroes, who were an interplanetary superhero team. This world, it's just a wild ride. Batman Holy Terror was the very first comic to actually carry the Elseworlds logo, and boy was it a strong start. The story of Holy Terror takes place in an alternate timeline where Oliver Cromwell lived long enough to solidify the rule of Puritans in 17th century England. That changed, and 300 years later, the entirety of North America is part of a commonwealth led and run by a super oppressive priestly government that does all it does in the name of God. Being a Batman story, we obviously follow Bruce Wayne, who in this world starts off by preparing to become another member of the clergy before he learns that his parents were assassinated by the government because of their radical political beliefs. So naturally, he becomes Batman to fight back. Along the way, he uncovers some incredibly dark secrets held by this oppressive government, including the fate of a whole bunch of metahumans who either became victims of government experiments or were created by the government in the first place. JLA Age of Wonder is an Elseworlds story that gives us a world where Superman lands on Earth in the 1850s and makes himself known to the world at the 1876 Centennial Exposition. Naturally, this Superman starts working with the greatest minds of his time, including Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, and of course, this world's Lex Luthor. Unfortunately, since humans be humans, a lot of their new technological innovations are really just going towards massive devices of destruction and war. So, to combat this, Superman and the League of Science do whatever they can to prevent the start of World War I. This world is very clearly steampunk inspired in a wholly different way to Gotham by Gaslight, and we get really cool versions of Green Lantern, Starman, and the Flash, but reimagined as Victorian-era scientists who are also superheroes. But arguably, the best part about this world is that it comes to us in a 2-issue comic miniseries, so you can read it in like less than a day. Tangent Comics was a DC Comics imprint created in 1997 and was made up of various one-shots focused on creating all new characters using established DC names like the Joker, Batman, the Flash, etc, etc. Now the Tangent universe, also known as Earth 97, radically diverged from our own timeline thanks to the appearance of metahumans who interfered in the Cuban Missile Crisis, which escalated drastically, leading to a limited nuclear exchange that resulted in the obliteration of both Florida and Cuba. Now the heroes of this world are pretty radically different. For example, this world's Flash is actually the first human born in space who gained light-based powers. Wonder Woman is an exiled warrior from another planet, which is, somewhat similar. And Green Lantern is a mysterious character who can bring back the dead. Next up is the Survival Zone. Now, the Survival Zone is a world that has had only one very tiny appearance, but the appearance it had seems incredibly hilarious. In the classic version of Supergirl's origin story, the Survival Zone is a pocket dimension discovered by Kara's pops, Zor-El, before the destruction of Krypton. Now why is it called the Survival Zone? Oh, let me tell you. It's called the Survival Zone because it's where Zor-El and Allura had run off to survive the destruction of the Kryptonian homeworld. The absolutely hilarious part about the Survival Zone is that Zor-El seems to have just decided that he wouldn't tell a single other soul on Krypton about the existence of a surefire way to save millions of Kryptonians. Instead, the pair saved themselves and avoided the destruction of everyone and everything they've ever known. Appearing in Superboy number 95, Earth 95 is a world that kind of makes no sense. And it's all because of how it is that the heroes even get there. Well, actually, for starters, what's really weird is that this comic's main heroes include both of Superman's parents, Jor-El and Lara. Instead of traveling to this alternate Earth in any of the ways we have ever seen before, Jor-El and Lara actually have to make their ship bigger and bigger and bigger in order to get there. Now we've seen stuff like this with concepts like a microverse, so I guess going from a microverse to a regular world again would kind of be the same thing, but for some reason my brain really just cannot comprehend how you can get so large that you enter a different universe. And this kind of hurts my brain. We're moving on. Next up is Earth 235, and it's a world that plays host to DC's Real Worlds imprint. Now as you can probably guess from the title, Real Worlds takes place in a world very much like our own. Superheroes don't exist in the way that we are used to seeing in comic books. For example, Real Worlds Batman follows Charlie Duffy, a 27-year-old disabled man who works as a convenience store worker in New York and is friendly and well known in the neighborhood. He named an old cat lady as Catwoman, and his old friend Clarissa was Robin, with her ex-boyfriend being the Joker. Do you see why it's weird? The funny thing is, it's actually still really inspiring. It's real-life people inspired by heroes in various different ways to start fighting crime in their own unique little real-world ways. And it's cute. Kind of. Next up is Earth 265, which was featured fittingly in Flash issue number 265. The story featured an invasion from another alternate Earth, or the denizens of that Earth were in danger of being struck by a comet, and they decided to vibrate their Earth fast enough that it would swap places with the main universe Earth, sparing their world and destroying ours instead. It's a rather interesting concept in a rather interesting early Flash comic, but the story isn't the part that's weird. I mean, yeah, it's weird, but the really strange part comes when we finally meet the denizens of this alternate world. The dominant species on this Earth have evolved not from apes like us, but from cetaceans, so dolphins. Naturally, they are like bluish, purplish, gray color, and they have pointed ears like elves. It's weird, I don't know. Thank you guys so much for watching today on Top 10 Nerd. My name is Adam Andrews. I will catch you all on the flippity flop, and even if I don't, stay safe and peace out, nerd. Actually carry the Elseworlds logo, and the boy. This world is very clearly steampunkin'. Whoa. Well, I don't even know what I just said. This world is very clearly One more time. What did I say? Steampunk? I don't even know what I said. Good lord. Okay. The survival. Oh, that was the last point. Thank you guys so much for watching.